Now is a leading member on the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman Will Hurd is joining us. He's also a former CIA officer. Congressman, thanks very much for coming in. I know you've been briefed on what's going on. I understand there are probably stuff that you can't tell us, but you agree with all the reporting we have that this Saeed Farouk was apparently radicalized in some fashion, either by his travels to Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or someplace else, or online.
The initial evidence seemed to suggest that that's exactly the case. And this is one of the, I think, issues that law enforcement is worried about. Is kind of this lone wolf that is not on anyone's radar, that gets radicalized some way, whether it's online or in their travel. And this is one of the most difficult areas for law enforcement to tackle. But what they're doing right now is they're going to be monitoring, looking through every piece of information they can find in order to use this to see if there's other folks like this gentleman, or this person, that they can find and try to stop.
He was a killer. I wouldn't call him a gentleman. Obviously killed 14 people. He injured, together with his wife, 21 people. But does it look like if he was radicalized, let's say online, does it look like it was an ISIS-inspired activity, an Al-Qaeda-inspired activity? Because they're both pretty active socially in social media.
I don't think there's enough information out there to point a direction to one of those two groups. But when you look at this is the tactics, techniques, and procedures that Al-Qaeda uses, that ISIS uses. ISIS's ability to leverage social media to radicalize someone, even though they've never stepped foot in Syria or Iraq, is unprecedented. And we got to start being able to honor that narrative and address ISIS's ability to leverage that social media.
What's stunning is the arsenal that this husband and wife team put together, the weapons, the rounds of ammunition, the bombs, the improvised explosive devices, these pipe bombs that they were developing right inside that home in Redlands, right next to San Bernardino. What does that say to you?
They said that he's been planning this, and that this has been going on for a really long time, and he had a purpose. And you know, it's hard for us to understand a sick mind like this, that someone will walk in to co-workers and kill them and murder them in cold blood. It's unbelievable, and we got to make sure that we're learning everything we can from this. I know law enforcement and intelligence agencies are working around the clock trying to find clues that they can use to see if there's other things like this going on and trying to stop it.
Congressman, stand by. We're going to continue our conversation much more with Congressman Will Hurd. We're getting more information coming into the Situation Room as well. More on the breaking news right after this. Will Hurd, he's a member of the House Homeland Security Committee. When these threats to the UK now, because of this vote in the British House of Commons to support British airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria, you take that seriously?
You should always take it seriously. If intelligence services in the UK are saying it's a credible threat, then it's likely a credible threat. And one of the things that needs to be happening right now, European allies need to do a better job of sharing information amongst each other. I sat on a task force looking at the threat of ISIS to the homeland, and one of the things that we found out is that our European partners was not sharing information on known bad guys amongst each other. We were sending tens of thousands of names of known terrorists to our European partners, and they weren't checking that information against known travelers.
The concern Americans have right now, what happened in San Bernardino, 14 people killed, 21 people injured in this clearly a terror attack. We don't know the specific motivation, but clearly a terror attack. It follows what happened in Paris, follows all of these concerns that are going around the world, and people are really worried, especially about copycats and others who may be inspired, if you will, by this ISIS or Al-Qaeda social media campaign.
No, you're absolutely right, and this is a problem. We need to do everything we can to stop it. These are all symptoms of a larger problem. That's ISIS being able to operate in Syria and Iraq. We're not doing enough to stop them there. We don't have enough aggressive intelligence collection on the ground to learn more about the plans and intentions of these groups, and learn more about the leadership of these groups and what they're trying to do in Europe and right here on our own shores.
These two terrorists, Saeed Farouk, his wife Tashfeen Malik, they had thousands of rounds of ammunition, lots of weapons. They had bombs. They were making bombs in their apartment, but apparently they were not on any terror watch list or the FBI's radar or anything like that. Is that a failure?
You can't tell if it's a failure yet or not. So we got to learn a little bit more about who they are, what they've been doing, who have they been talking to, and to compare that to other information we have and have been collecting over the last 14 years since the attacks in New York City. So there's a lot of information that needs to be analyzed to make sure this doesn't happen again. And if there were loopholes or something that we missed, how do we close that so this doesn't happen again?
Because Jay Johnson, the Secretary of Security, he briefs your committee all the time. Apparently his top concern are these individuals who are out there that could be radicalized, and it's not that hard to go buy ammunition and get weapons and potentially build a bomb. They can go to that Inspire magazine, that Al-Qaeda AQAP magazine, which has articles all the time, how to build a bomb in the kitchen of your mom.
No, you're right, and this is a fear for all law enforcement and intelligence agencies, and one of the things that we need to be doing is countering the messaging of groups like ISIS, how they're leveraging social media. You know, ISIS has 4 social media campaigns a day, and they're leveraging this into 49 different languages and dialects, and they're hitting tens of millions of people. And we got to be messaging there. We got to be stopping that message. We got to be working with non-governmental organizations, with our partners in Europe, with our partners like Egypt and Jordan and the UAE in order to counter that narrative.
Do you have any clue who these 2 individuals may have been in contact with, foreign terrorists, if you will, whether through social media or phone, whatever, texting?
I'm not aware of that right now, but that is definitely something that's going to be coming to light, and to see, you know, who that person was, and was that individual in touch with other Americans, other Europeans, and figure out how we find them.
You spent 9 years in the CIA as a CIA officer. What can the CIA be doing right now to keep the American people safe?
Running more intelligence operations in Syria, Iraq against leadership of ISIS to try to better understand what their plots are, not only in that region, but in Europe and the United States.
You think they're up to the task right now? Because it seems like the intelligence isn't necessarily perfect.
Well, intelligence is never perfect, but the men and women in the CIA, they want to do this. They want to have their hands untied. And I think this is part of a political leadership decision to say, hey, we're gonna double down in this area. We're going to flood the zone. We're going to make sure that we have the folks on the ground and collecting the information we need, because we can collect the information there to keep us safe on our own shores.
Congressman Will Hurd of Texas, thanks very much for coming.